What is that smell? I am definitely getting a hint of a deal. Oh wait, it's more than a hint. Yeah, these are the best deals, and not just this season, but all year long. In all seriousness, the smartest shoppers know that you get the brands you love with the most savings and cash back with Rakuten. And I know I'm certainly interested in sniffing out those deals. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Urban Outfitters, Petco, even Expedia, and getting cash back doesn't mean you have to miss out on sales because those can be stacked right on top. It's easy to use and based on a simple idea. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cashback through PayPal or check. Smells like a perfect deal to me. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's Rakuten.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
Welcome back to Undertow, Realm's podcast dedicated to tales of the weird and the wicked. I'm your host, director, and producer, Fred Greenhalgh. And today we have the final installment, part 5 of The Collection. Against all advice doled out in horror movies, Peter acquired a mysterious book and followed its instructions to the north of England and his father's bizarre estate, which was filled with an endless supply of deadly objects that drove him to the grips of madness and ended up with him burning the place to the ground. We thought that by hearing the ring of ambulances, help was on the way and his horrors were over. Oh, but not yet. Not yet. We'll find out today what madness lies for him yet in part 5 of The Collection.
Pacing and pacing. The room seemed as though it had grown smaller and smaller over the course of the hour. Why was this taking so long? When I'd awoken, I suspected I would be in police custody, or perhaps a hospital ward. It was a ward, all right, only not the one I'd hoped for. The police had arrived at the engulfed Caulfield Manor in their shining black wagon and had apparently tried to put me into the car to take me home. Instead, they found me howling at the sky, unresponsive to their commands. I hadn't gone with them quietly. The local hospital didn't have the resources to deal with someone having an apparent mental breakdown, nor did they want to. The constables brought me to the Ogden Institute instead. I was pushed into a little room with a man who seemed as old and as jubilant as Father Christmas. Quite looked like him too, with the thick beard and large gut. Dr. Magorian, his nameplate read. I pleaded my case to him. I had to leave. People were coming for me, people who wanted my father's research and were willing to harm innocents in order to get it. Magorian sat there with an infuriating calm on his exultant face as he scribbled on a pad of paper at his desk. "Who are these people, Peter?" I told him. I didn't know who, but I knew why. "Go on," he urged, pen at the ready. I wasn't cautious. As I paced to and fro, I didn't care how mad I seemed as everything poured out of me. I recalled the churning current of violent and terrible episodes that I didn't want to keep inside any longer. The Paladin, the Hall of Mirrors, the piano, the lions. The doctor stopped writing somewhere in the middle of it all and waited patiently until I was done. Then he asked, "Were you angry with your father?" I allowed an incredulous chuckle to escape. "Of course I was. It's what I've ballywell said, isn't it? He kept all of these things at Caulfield and never told me. But that's what they wanted. I'm the only one who knows about his collection now." "Did you feel the same rage toward Miss Rapp?" "What is the matter with you?" I stammered. "Aren't you listening to me? She was a part of it. They bloody killed her because she was." Magorian folded his hands together in his lap. "Who are they again, Peter?" I took a step toward him. "Good God, man, I told you, I don't know." "Did your feelings toward your father compel you to burn down Caulfield House?" I grabbed the back of the chair in front of his desk, my knuckles turning white. "I don't have time for this. I have to get home. My family is in danger." He coughed. "You'll return to your wife and son in due time, Peter. We only want to make sure you're healthy in mind as well as in body." Healthy? The word came out as barely a whisper. I've just barely survived being eaten and skewered on a spear and being burned alive. I'd say being healthy is the absolute least of my worries at the moment. His smile only widened. "I would like you to follow Nurse Hull to a room where you can gather yourself. We'll come to collect you when you can leave." I trailed a woman with all the grace and fluidity of a primordial beast to the tiny cell-like room. She left me there for over an hour, perhaps 2. All the while, my thoughts raced and my pacing grew more frantic. I tried the door, only to find it locked from the outside. The clock was ticking. Francis and Emil weren't safe on their own. I briefly wondered why my wife hadn't come for me. Surely she would have cleared this entire situation up. She knew the kind of man my father was. She knew who I was. Digging my fingers through my hair, I turned as the lock clicked back. Hull opened the door, her curved nose and beady, light-colored eyes fixed on me like a raptor having spotted its prey. "Come with me, Mr. Dawson." My spirits soared as I followed her in the hall. At last, Francis had come. She was safe. We walked for a time, each hallway seemingly whiter and longer than the last. I was pretty sure we'd passed the main foyer, but didn't speak up. I didn't know how these kinds of facilities released patients, not that I was ready to admit I was one. Perhaps there was another door where I would meet my wife. Hull entered an open room, and I joined her inside. My legs faltered. There was no exit, no promise of departure, and no Francis. A stretcher sat near the wall dressed with a rubber sheet. Thick blankets were folded on a table next to a metal washbin with linens in it. Beyond them was a porcelain bath, brightened by a large window where daylight burst in like a scream. I collected my voice. "What is this?" "It's called hydrotherapy, Mr. Dawson. It will leave you feeling relaxed and help to calm that anxiety of yours." "No," I stepped away. "The doctor said I could leave. Francis will wonder where I am." "Your wife has been informed about your condition," Hull explained, reaching out to me. "My condition?" "We believe it is schizophrenia. But not to worry. We'll take good care of you here." She curled her fingers around my arm. "Now, what you need is a cold pack to take your mind off all this nonsense about living statues and gyrating libraries." I pried her fingers off me. What happened to me was real. What do I have to say so that you'll believe me? Dr. Magorian stepped into the room from another door. "You're confused, Mr. Dawson. Anyone would be after what you experienced." The way he talked, they talked, was too calm and too collected. "No." I turned to leave, but bumped straight into another man, a tall orderly with ruddy cheeks and gawky arms and legs. He blocked the doorway. I backed into the room and glanced at each of them. "There's been a mistake. Please. Your episode at Caulfield leads us to believe you've developed a paranoid precocious madness. Your father's questionable mental health was common knowledge, and we think it could be genetic. Treatment is necessary to keep you from following a similarly destructive path," the doctor said. I flinched. "I'm nothing like my father." Again, Hull reached to take my arm. I snatched my hand away. "Get off me!" The orderly advanced on me, and I backed away from him into the room, further and further from my only exit. Magorian put up his hands. "Easy, Peter. We don't want to hurt you." I bumped into something, the bathtub. I'd gone further than I wanted to. Hull's petite eyes were cold and dead, their effect gorgonizing me in place. "But we will, if we must." The realization collapsed down on me. Witnesses had seen a tall, gangling man push Rapp into traffic. I stared at the orderly. I gazed at his long limbs like the crooked twists of 4 tree branches, at how he leered over me like some behemoth waiting to devour its trapped victim. "You killed her, didn't you?" I glanced at Megorian and Hull. "You're with them." The orderly seized my arms with iron fingers and easily flipped me off my feet into the tub. I gasped as glacial liquid swallowed me. Water and lumps of ice gushed into my open mouth. Instinct took over as I kicked and clawed at his savage grip on me. No matter how I thrashed, I couldn't loosen his hold. His strength was inhuman. My lungs gave out and more water rushed in. The orderly heaved me out of the ice bath, and I half crawled into his arms to let him, sputtering and choking. Grappling me from behind, he hooked his spider-like arms under mine and pulled them back to keep me from escaping. Even as shock assailed me, I desperately fought against his hold. Hull appeared at my side and slipped a needle into my arm. A strange warmth overtook me as I was heaved onto a stretcher. It wasn't enough to calm my violent shivering. Even the orderly's hold couldn't still me as I struggled to break free. He and Hull peeled my wet clothes away piece by piece and discarded them somewhere outside my periphery. Terror sliced its way across my mind like a hunted man chopping through a jungle with a machete. I shouted at the top of my lungs, calling to anyone that might be near. A horrible dampness tightened across my chest and limbs as Hull rolled my body into a wet sheet and tucked in the sides around me. Together, she and the orderly brought another layer around me and secured it to the bed. I writhed against the confinement but couldn't move. The sheets were so constricting, I couldn't even ball my fists. Hull draped a wool blanket up around my neck, puckering it on both sides of the mattress. Another was pulled up around my body, and another. The cocoon completed, she wrung out a small towel over the washbin and draped it over my forehead. It, too, was freezing, but I couldn't shrink away. She stepped back to admire her work. "Let me go!" I yelled. Claustrophobia swept in like a first frost. Recalling the music room at Caulfield and my near-death experience there, I bucked as hard as I could. It was no use. I was mummified. With my entire body confined against the mattress, I couldn't budge. "Monitor him for 3 hours. Make sure he's calm. Then do the treatment again," Megorian ordered before he moved into my eyesight. "Rest, Peter. Soon you'll feel much better," he said with an insidious grin. I could barely form words on my lips. Exhaustion and the medicine tugged my mind down toward the sludgy mire of slumber. "You bastard." He disappeared from my vision, and I heard the door close behind him as he left. "So cold. Get warm. Stay awake." My mind had shut down to the point where only those visceral impulses echoed. A nauseating calm invaded them as minutes passed and the drugs coursed through my veins. Oblivion lurked beyond the edges of my sight, waiting to close in. Stay awake. The deadly cold was soon supplanted by an uncomfortable and escalating heat. Wrapped in so many clammy blankets was like being crammed into a tiny box filled with tepid water. I practically suffocated from the warmth. Sweat beaded on my neck, beneath my arms, and soon all over. Ember-like flares of light sparked up and danced across my vision, while dizziness rocked over me, the room tipping back and forth, back and forth. I slipped into sleep against my will, into a blackness I wasn't sure if I'd ever wake from.
Hey Undertow listeners, Fred here, sharing some love for Quince. I don't think of myself as a fashionista, but it turns out actually I'm really particular about what styles work for me, and I'm also really keen to support brands that are safe and ethical, which Quince delivers in spades. What's more, by partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out that middleman and passes the savings on to us. I've gone ahead and grabbed some versatile pieces to upgrade my style, such as a jet black full-zippered hoodie sweater made of Mongolian cashmere. It gives me the looks of a Jedi, while also making me feel like I'm wrapped in a warm hug every time I put it on, which is pretty wonderful. I also love their activewear. I got one of their performance t-shirts, which crazily enough is super comfortable as an underlayer here in New England in cold weather, but I also brought it on my vacation to the tropics of Belize, where it was reliably 85 degrees or more every day, and it was light, breathable, stylish, just incredibly versatile, and great piece of clothing. With spring on the way, I am looking to continue to freshen up my wardrobe with killer luxury essentials from Quince, and you can too. Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/undertow for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/undertow to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/undertow.
There are many ways to entice a potential new customer with flashy branding and calculated marketing strategies. But at the end of the day, the success of a business comes down to the ability to close the sale. And for businesses like Thrive Cosmetics, Allbirds, or Skims, it's what goes on behind the scenes, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple, that makes the difference. For them and for millions of businesses, that difference is made with Shopify. Businesses that want to grow, grow with Shopify. Because if your goal is growth, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And Shopify will make sure you're ready. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And with Shop Pay, they boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. It's no wonder Shopify is home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/realm.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Peter? Frances had said my name 5 times in the last minute, and still I couldn't make eye contact with her. For the longest time, I wasn't sure if I was hallucinating again, or if she was really there. Her persistence convinced me she was genuine. She shouldn't have had to come in a place like Ogden. It wasn't dignified for her. It smelled of piss and sorrow, reeked of madness. The police had assumed I was mad too. They couldn't believe in the collection. To them, I had burned down my father's estate in hysteria, driven by feelings of ill contempt for him, feelings of rage and vengeance. An old man began to urinate against the wall close by. The orderlies wouldn't go near him yet. Instead, they hung back like the great watchdogs they were so they could drag him back into a dingy cell as soon as he was done. "Peter, please." Frances's voice was more desperate. I hated her being subjected to this place, but I needed her. She was my only hope of escaping Ogden alive. This faceless organization that desired my father's secrets had won. They'd muzzled me and pronounced me insane to keep me from telling the world about them. Hull and Megorian, and especially their Cerberus orderly, they were not who they said they were. They had killed Rapp and covered up her death, drove my father to destroy his research and himself. I feared to think what else they were capable of, and how large their organization truly was. I'd endured 3 cold packs my first day at the Institute. Left on the bed for hours at a time, the sheets tightened as they dried, which pinched and crushed my fevered body. When I started to awaken, Hull and the arachnid orderly dumped me back into the ice-cold water and left me shivering on the stretcher to repeat the torturous process again. I'd learned the orderly's name at this time. Borg, a name that felt acrid yet clumsy on the tongue, a name appropriate for his awkward frame and monstrous countenance. After the treatments were over, Borg discarded me in the same room where I was left when I'd arrived. I lay in a heap at the foot of the bed, too delirious and ill to move. In the night, I awoke, having gained some of my energy back. I called for help as loud as I could. Perhaps there were genuine doctors and nurses here that could help me if only they knew what was going on. Someone had to hear me. Someone had to take pity. My shouts awoke several others, and pandemonium ensued as the entire hall joined in with me. My anticipation flew, and for a few brief minutes, I was convinced that the riot I'd started would bring someone outside of Magorian's schemes to my room. Unfortunately, Hull and Borg reached my room before anyone else could. They couldn't risk me telling anyone what they'd done. They needed me kept silent. Borg grappled me down onto the floor, and Hull injected me with a cocktail of clear fluids that instantly made me groggy. I had no sense of time on these medicines and slept away entire days, kept under on a constant sequence of pills. I'd wake here and there, barely registering whether it was morning or night, always with confusion about what had happened and where I was. In my few coherent moments, Hull and Magorian were always nearby, either counting out another dose or writing down observations. I almost never ate, and what I did never managed to stay down. I barely used my bedpan for more than vomiting. As the days passed, hunger weakened me, and the onset of a terrible fever left me with chills, hallucinations, and a worsening cough. Frances assumed the Ogden Institute was helping me. She had no idea who Magorian and his associates really were, didn't recognize that my downward spiral wasn't mental, it was completely pharmaceutical. Magorian's goal was to drive me into lunacy and eventually to death with his drugs. If I kept receiving them, I knew someday I'd cease to wake up. "I'm here for you, Peter," Frances's voice trembled. "But you have got to come out of this stupor. Tell me what happened to you. Tell me what's made you so ill. I need to know you'll come back to me, to your son. You have to give me something to work with." All I could do was shiver. Trapped inside of my own fevered body, my mind fought for control. It was as though I was underwater, looking up at myself floundering on the surface. That morning, in a rare, clear moment of judgment, I had refused my treatment. Borg locked me in 4-point restraints on my bed, while Hull injected me anyway. Hours later, when Frances came to visit me, they'd wheeled me into a common room like an invalid. I was only free from my manacles because I could barely move, let alone keep my eyes on my wife. Focusing on her words was especially difficult. Frances cleared her throat and sniffed. She didn't like to cry. In that way, her and my father were very alike. Even now, I could see she was unable to hold it back. "Someone came to the house the other day," she said. "He asked about your father, some kind of research he was doing, and a book. I told him to leave and he wouldn't go. He was horrible, Peter. A frightful man with a terrible smile. I thought he was going to force himself inside. Aaron showed up in the nick of time and only by chance. The man seemed very upset when he left." She shivered. "I'm frightened, Peter. I think he'll be back." The burst of dread entered my bloodstream at her words. Had Magorian been to my home? Why would he have looked for the book there? I'd had it with me when the police took me into custody. No, I didn't have it when I came to the Institute. I must have left it at the house. Or perhaps the police still had it. Whatever the case, Magorian was closing in. If he thought Frances possessed it, she and Emil were in danger. She dabbed at her eyes as tears fell. "We need you. Please come back to us." My chest ached. I longed to touch her hair, to tell her I was there to protect her. I scratched at the glassy shell that held my mind in that hellish torpor. I needed release. I needed her to know she wasn't alone. Francis sighed. I'm afraid I can't stay any longer, Peter. Aaron and Molly are waiting for me outside. They gave me a lift. They wanted to come in, but... She let the sentence hang, and I recognized the lie in it. They hadn't wanted to come in. They didn't want to see me like this. Francis looked to the ceiling. Please, God, help him, she muttered under her breath before looking at me in the eyes again. That gaze sent ripples of misery through me. Goodbye, my love. Instinct bolted through me. The shell cracked. I tried to lift my arm to grab her hand before she could go, but it didn't move. She stood and began to walk away. No. She spun around. Peter? My voice. Had that been my voice? It sounded nothing like I remembered. Weak and hoarse, but it was real. Before I could speak again, my chest seized, and I crumpled in my chair as fits of coughs overwhelmed me. She rushed back to me. Goodness, darling, are you all right? Again, old boy, you can do this. Don't. My whole face was numb, my jaw juddered with effort. Come on, come on. Leave me here. Thank the Lord you've said something. Francis sat back down and grabbed my hands. Hers were so warm. Oh, your fingers are like ice. Francis. It was coming easier now, slowly but surely. Her smile reminded me of a delicate slice of the moon. I imagined the soft lunar glow in her hair, of her smooth skin in my embrace, tucked close to me as we slept. I used it as a ladder to pull myself out of the suffocating deadness the medicine had put me in. Get me out of here. You're ill, Peter. The doctors said you've been unresponsive for nearly a week. They're only trying to help. They did this to me. A haunted look crossed her face. What? The drugs are killing me. She blinked slowly. Your nurse? Hull or something? She said you were confused. I shook my head wildly. Peter, you know me, I said. You need to rest. You can hardly talk. I closed my eyes, my frustration unhinging. Please, listen to me. All right, Francis stilled. That collectedness that I admired so much about her shone in her face as she leaned in. I'm listening. Tears welled up in my eyes, and soon I tasted salt on my tongue. I'm telling you, I'm not crazy. That man who came to the house, that was my doctor. Her mouth dropped open a little. How could you know that, Peter? There's a photo over there. I nudged my head toward a picture on the wall. Francis cautiously stood and moved toward the group portrait hanging across the room. She got up on her tiptoes and inspected it closely. After a moment, she put a hand to her mouth and glanced back at me. I nodded. She rejoined me at the table. It's him. He's dangerous. He's had them keep me asleep for days. Days? Her eyes widened. Why? I don't. I lost control. Sobs racked me. It was so hard to think, so hard to organize my thoughts. All I wanted was for her to understand me, for her to take me out of here. But I needed to be able to talk, to explain to her why. Darling, calm down. She came around the table and crouched in front of me, combing her fingers through my hair. As soon as she started, she snatched her hand away. You're damp. She pressed the back of her hand to my forehead. Oh, darling, you're burning up. I'm so cold. I lost my voice in another spasm of coughs. Peter, how long have you been like this? Haven't they done anything for you? Hull's crone-like figure approached us out of the corner of my eye. I saw the pills in her knobby hands, and my hope evaporated. "It's time for your medication, Mr. Dawson," she droned. I shrunk deeper into my chair. Francis stood abruptly and stepped between me and the nurse. "You will not put any more of that poison into my husband, let alone touch him again." Her words were direct, her tone deadly. I'd only heard her speak that way a couple of times before, but never with that level of fury. Innocence, no doubt feigned, filled Hull's eyes as she held her ground. "I'm afraid it's a part of his treatment, Mrs. Dawson. Don't you want him to get better?" "He isn't getting better, only worse. He has a fever and he can barely speak." Hull nodded. "He suffered a trauma in that house, dearie. He's very, very ill." "No," I begged. "That's what they want you to think." Francis didn't look at me. Her fiery gaze narrowed on Hull. "I'll be removing my husband from your care immediately. I shall need to speak with your administrator as soon as possible." Hull's mouth puckered a little. "It's not as simple as that. There are procedures that must be—" "I suggest you make it simple," Francis demanded. "My uncle serves on the Board of Control for Lunacy and Mental Deficiency. I can be through to him in one phone call and have the Lord Chancellor here within a day. Is that what you want?" Hull staggered back. She actually staggered back. "He'll need a doctor to sign his release papers, and unfortunately no one here believes he is of sound mind. He isn't fit to return to society." "Not to worry, I know a doctor." Francis turned to another younger nurse at the desk across the room. "You there, if you could, please put in a call to Dr. Wilbur Thurman at Hertford College at Oxford. It's an emergency, and I need him at Ogden Institute straight away." The nurse dutifully nodded and picked up the receiver on the phone nearby. "This is highly irregular, ma'am," Hull said, scoffing. Her eyes flicked back and forth, and I could see her control on the situation slipping through her fingers. Other visitors in the room had begun to stare now. A few of the orderlies were now watching Hull in a questioning way. Innocent bystanders were the only thing keeping Francis safe right now, I knew. "Nothing as irregular as forcing a man who claims he isn't crazy into a coma for a week and then not attending to his well-being," Francis snapped. "I have nothing more to discuss with you. Leave us." Hull walked stiffly out of the room, no doubt to find someone else to abuse. My champion. My Francis. I could scarcely believe she'd pulled it off. She knelt by my wheelchair and clutched my hand in hers. "I won't let you out of my sight," she promised. Exhausted from the effort to break through the drugs, I leaned back in my seat and sighed with relief. "I'm lucky you're so fierce." A sad smile overtook her features. "When it comes to keeping you out of trouble, I can be as ferocious as need be." "This uncle of yours, I don't remember him." "You wouldn't." She gazed up at me unblinkingly. I closed my eyes. "You are brilliant." She leaned in and pressed her forehead to mine. I could have stayed forever that way. If there was ever a moment in time that I could pause, it would be there. The affection, pride, and gratitude I had for my wife then was beyond words. "Dr. Wilbur Thurman is on the line for you, madam," the young nurse called. "Go," I whispered to her. "We'll have you out of here in no time," she said, and walked over to retrieve the telephone. I glanced out of the window towards the front walkway of the institute, lashed with rain. I was already considering where we would need to go in order to escape my father's enemies. Clearly, Megorian and the rest of his ilk wouldn't be satisfied until they had a copy of the collection in their hands. That meant either finding the book I'd left at the house or keeping me in their clutches, the only living person who had seen it. There was only one place far enough away from their grasp. The American house, Hirath. The other estate my father had left to me in his will. Hirath was the place for us to start over, his gift to me, knowing there would be people coming for his secrets. It would have been over if the collection had been all at Caulfield. I was the only witness to the terrible things he'd kept there, and I had destroyed them all. But the book's objects weren't just at Caulfield. There were other secret places that he'd kept these horrors, and I still had no idea where. It didn't occur to me then that Hiraeth could be a lingering trap, that my father could have kept items for the collection there. True to its name, Hiraeth was wistfulness for a home I hadn't been able to return to, a place of lovely and serene nostalgia that I yearned for in a way I'd never experienced. To me, America was our only hope. The house in Seraphim City was to be our rebirth. I never suspected it would end up being our ultimate descent into obsession and madness.
And that was The Collection, Part 5, with a delicious twist at the end, leaving open yet another House of Horrors on a different continent. But we will not be visiting that here on Undertow today. We are moving our trio of nightmares to our third volume next week with a gruesomely twisted apocalyptic tale called Carrion Harvest by main writer Morgan Sylvia. Sprout and her mother were getting along just all right on their own, but Sprout's mother longed for more, and she chooses to marry a man who makes a whole other rather extravagant lifestyle possible for them, but at a truly horrific cost. Just how horrific will that cost be? Well, you'll have to listen to find out here next time on Undertow. The Collection was written by Katherine Silva, performed by Cliff Chapman, with editing and sound design by Rory O'Shea. Produced by yours truly, Fred Greenhalgh, as a Dagaz media production for Realm. Undertow is a production of Realm, hosted by Fred Greenhalgh, associate produced by Devin Shepherd, executive produced by Fred Greenhalgh and Molly Barton.
I'm Amy Nicholson, the film critic for the LA Times.
And I'm Paul Scheer, an actor, writer, and director. You might know me from The League, Veep, or my non-eligible for Academy Award role in Twisters.
We love movies, and we come at them from different perspectives.
Yeah, like Amy thinks that, Joe Pesci was miscast in Goodfellas, and I don't.
He's too old. Let's not forget that Paul thinks that Dune 2 is overrated.
It is.
Anyway, despite this, we come together to host Unspooled, a podcast where we talk about good movies, critical hits,
fan favorites, must-sees, and in case you missed them.
We're talking Parasite to Home Alone.
From Grease to The Dark Knight.
We've done deep dives on popcorn flicks. We've talked about why Independence Day deserves a second look.
And we've talked about horror movies, some that you've never even heard of, like Ganja and Hess.
So if you love movies like we do, come along on our cinematic adventure.
Listen to Unspooled wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget to hit the follow button.
Can you actually change your personality if you want to? How does peer pressure work, and why is it so powerful? Should you ever really trust your gut when you make a big decision? These are just a few of the topics we've recently covered on my podcast, Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and each episode of Something You Should Know covers multiple topics that are likely relevant to you. You'll discover things you can use in your life today, right now, like how to have a great conversation, how to be more courageous, the anatomy of the perfect apology, and much, much more. To date, there are over 1,000 episodes of Something You Should Know, and we've gotten over 4,000 mostly 5-star reviews. I invite you to check out Something You Should Know. Look for the bright yellow light bulb on the blue background. Something You Should Know, wherever you listen to podcasts.